Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is the Madden NFL 24 off-season 2-a-day feature series where I talk a little bit about free agents, team needs, and possible draft targets. Today we are talking about the Chicago Bears. Let's get right into it. So even after signing a few big free agents in 2023, Chicago is projected to have $70 million in cap space. That is what happens when you have a quarterback on his rookie deal. More on that later, of course. So the Bears have a bunch of team needs and one major free agent to re-sign, and they should be able to do pretty much whatever they want. Bad teams often have to overpay for players, so Chicago might have to do that while they continue to build up their roster. Number one is Pro Bowl cornerback Jalen Johnson. He's sitting at an 88 overall, only 24 years old, a Pro Bowler, probably the best player on Chicago's defense. With all the cap space and the franchise tag available, I fully expect Johnson to be back in Chicago next year. Number two, wide receiver Darnell Mooney, rated 77 overall. So he's a long way from his 2021 season where he had 81 catches for 1,000 yards. He's off back-to-back very disappointing seasons. Took a clear step back with DJ Moore gobbling up all the targets. There's a lot of receivers available in this draft, so Mooney's probably not a priority re-sign. Number three is defensive end Yannick Ngakoue, 73 overall. Somehow he's only 28 years old. Seems like he's been in the NFL for decades. He's been on 6 different teams the past 6 years, and I expect him to move on once again. He's more of a rotational guy right now, and the Bears have Montez Sweat, a lot of draft picks, and cap space to aim higher at the position. Number four is defensive tackle Justin Jones, rated 72 overall. The Bears drafted Zach Pickens and Gervon Dexter as the future defensive tackle tandem, most likely. But Jones, who's still only 27 years old, had his best season as a pro. 4.5 sacks, 49 tackles. He shouldn't cost a ton to re-sign. I guess it depends on if they want to go young or they want to have a nice deep rotation. But he should get a nice payday no matter where he ends up. Number five is defensive end Rasheem Green, rated number 70. The Bears are sitting pretty good with not having a bunch of high-rated free agents. So Green makes the cut even though he's strictly a backup at this point in his career. He only really had one above-average season. That was in 2021 at Seattle where he had 6.5 sacks. Other than that, strictly a rotational defensive end who can play some tackle, but the Bears are going to be pretty deep there, so I don't really think they'll look to re-sign him. The number one roster need for the Chicago Bears is wide receiver. DJ Moore had a monster season, 96 receptions, over 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. But the rest of the position left a lot to be desired. Mooney was okay, not great. But the other 3 guys on the roster, Tyler Scott had 17 receptions, and the other 2 guys, not even worth talking about. Fortunately, the Bears have a lot of draft picks and a lot of money and should give whoever the quarterback is next year quite a bit of help. The number 2 need is defensive end. The Bears had to completely remake that side of the ball when they moved to a 4-3 defense and traded Khalil Mack a couple years ago. They did trade for Montez Sweat. He had 6 sacks after arriving in Chicago, and they gave him a nice extension. Other than that, there is not another starter on the current roster. You see Rasheem Green here, but he is a free agent. I will cut him once they sign somebody else because of positional requirements. You can't have less than 4 defensive ends on the roster. So right now it's Montez Sweat and a bunch of nobodies. The third biggest need on the Bears roster is free safety. Chicago cut longtime starter Eddie Jackson after 7 seasons with the team. His play has slipped and the injuries have piled up. There is not an in-house replacement on the roster. The fourth biggest need on the roster for the Bears is running back. So this video is about Madden rosters in particular, and there aren't many rosters in the game that have 0 running backs rated 80 or higher. Khalil Herbert, he's okay. He's probably a backup, change of pace guy. Same with Rashawn Johnson. There isn't that lead guy on this roster right now. The fifth biggest need, and the most talked about, is quarterback. You know I had to go there. Say what you will about Justin Fields, say what you will about the first overall draft pick and Caleb Williams, but Fields is only rated a 76, and that's usually not enough to cut it when you're playing Madden. You need that 80-plus guy, and I don't know if Fields will ever be that. We'll see what the offseason holds for him. It's going to be a fascinating story, and definitely the one to follow if you're a Bears fan. One player the Bears could consider is defensive end Chase Young. Reunite Montez Sweat with his Washington teammate. So Chase Young is still only 24 years old, but has had his career stalled due to injuries. There's plenty of time for him to right the ship. The talent's still there. The Bears have a lot of cap space, and this could be the type of guy they could gamble on. It might be a short-term deal, maybe give him 1 year, $10 million, see what he can do. But theoretically, the pass rushing ability is still there, and he could be a big help. There are a lot of big-name free agent running backs available. You don't want to really give money to guys who are nearing 30 years old, and Derrick Henry may only have 1 or 2 years left, but I think he would make a good short-term signing for a team like Chicago. They're either going to have their running quarterback, Justin Fields, or they're going to break in a new quarterback, Caleb Williams or Drake May. So having that one guy you can hand the rock off to 15 to 20 times a game to get you those tough yards could be a good fit. I think the Bears are going to spend a top pick on a wide receiver, but it never hurts to have that third slot guy, veteran type. Tyler Boyd will probably be squeezed out as Cincinnati looks to re-sign T. Higgins. He's a good route runner with sure hands and would be a nice safety blanket if Caleb Williams is the future in Chicago. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about the draft in these previews because free agency will change team needs quite a bit, but the Bears are in a unique position. They have the first overall pick, they have Justin Fields and a few years of development, and they know what they have with him. Is that who they want to stick with going forward, or do they want to start out with Caleb Williams? That is going to be a decision that will shape the future of this franchise in a huge way. I personally, as a fan, not as an expert or anything like that, I personally think it is time to go with Caleb Williams. I like Williams a lot. I think there's been quite a bit of a smear campaign against him. I don't think he's as bad as people are making it out to seem. I really like the talent, and I think he could bring the Bears to a position that Justin Fields simply cannot provide. So we will see how that goes. Other than that, the Bears are in pretty good shape. It was not always pretty, but they ended up winning more games than expected. They have a semi-deep roster. They have a good offensive line, a lot of young developing defensive players, and a bunch of cap space to try to make a jump. The NFC North is definitely winnable next year. The NFC as a whole is not strong, so a few good moves and the Bears could be right back there in playoff contention. But it all depends on what they do with quarterback. It's going to be all everybody talks about up until the draft, and we will see how it goes. It should be interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens. So thanks everybody for checking out the Chicago Bears. Please make sure to check out all the other teams. You can see the playlist. You can check out my channel. 2-a-days. Try to do 2 teams every day up until the middle of March when free agency starts. Thanks so much. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this. If you're a Bears fan, let me know what you think. Let me know what your team wants to do. And stay tuned for all the other teams. Thank you, everybody.